It's the morning drive.
Good morning and welcome to the Morning Drive. I'm your host, Brooks Fiesinger of brooksfiesinger.com and MillionaireWho.com, where we help you stabilize your wallet, secure your future, and succeed in entrepreneurship and finance. I'm here with my co-host, Hyundai Sonata. All right, let's get on the road. For today's conversation, we will be talking about why passive income matters and frugality. Why passive income matters is an interesting conversation that came up the other day when I was talking to somebody who was actually listening to these podcasts. And I was talking about passive income in a previous podcast, and he said, I don't understand why you keep talking about passive income. What does passive income mean and why does it matter? And that made me realize maybe I had just assumed that each of you had already been educated on that topic. And since I don't like to assume things, let's roll that back and let's get you up to speed on what is passive income and why it matters. So passive income is income that you don't have to, that's not a one-to-one connection with the time you put in. So a normal paycheck or a normal job, you work 10 hours, you get paid for 10 hours. If you get $10 an hour, you get $100, right? You put in 10 hours, you get $100. You're trading your time for money. That's your typical salary, it's your typical pay type of structure that many of you guys are going to use. Now, what passive income is passive income changes that. So and with passive income, instead of you having to put an hour in for every $10 you receive, you might be able to put in 100 hours up front and then you get $1 a day for life, right? That then becomes passive income. So when we're talking about the passive income, it breaks that bond of 1 minute in for 1 minute's worth of work out, if that makes sense. So there's some other places that are going to talk about their specific version of passive income. So, if you're a real estate agent or real estate, it's going to be, when you buy a rental house, you buy the house up front and then it churns out rental income for life. Now, that doesn't always mean, as you can imagine with the rental income, passive income does not mean you never have to do anything. In the ideal world, that's what passive income would mean. But I need to clarify that most people, when they talk about passive income, it's not that they don't put in any work, it's that they've broken that bond between the direct input of work and the direct output of income. So once again, that does not mean that you're necessarily cutting out all work. If you're going to be a landlord and you're going to get into rentals, I guarantee you're going to spend a lot of time dealing with that, okay? Some of you are going to be spending more time than you want to be dealing with that. And many times it's going to feel more like a second job. But at night, you're still, quote, quote, earning income. You're breaking that bond between a direct hour in and a direct hour out. And as it grows, you can often put in less time per dollar, right? It might not be that you're putting in less time overall, but you're putting less time per hour earned. Where in a traditional job position, for every hour you're working, once again, you're getting paid for an hour's worth of work. So you can imagine pretty quickly that passive income has a lot of benefits because you can start layering it on top of each other because it's not tied to your labor time. Each one of us only has 24 hours a day. I have 24 hours, you have 24 hours a day. So how do you get the most out of those 24 hours a day you have? That's kind of one of the issues. So I can't work 10 8-hour jobs in a day, right? It's impossible to work 10 8-hour jobs in a day because I don't have 80 hours in a day. So I can't do it. But in passive income, I could own 100 rental houses in one day, and each one of them can be working to generate money for me. I could own $1 million in stock, and that stock could be dividend stock, generating 5% dividends, and that could be 5% every year generated without me having to physically do much. It could be books, books. I've published some books. I like books. Once you publish a book, it takes a whole lot of work up front. That is there. And a check rolls in every month, and I don't have to do anything for that check each month. So it's kind of fun because when you start getting some passive income streams rolling, then all of a sudden it's like starts to create a snowball effect where, each month you're making more money than the month before, but you're not necessarily doing more work. And that's where passive income gets very exciting for people. Now, once again, a lot of people have the goal of a specific type of passive income that is very little to zero effort up front. And pretty much any type of income or any type of passive income can be turned into completely hands-off passive income eventually by hiring somebody to replace you or to put the effort in. But up front, a lot of passive income still does take a lot of upfront time or a lot of learning, a lot of education, and a lot of initial effort. So let's make sure we discuss that initially so you realize that when we talk about passive income, ideally, a lot of people are talking about literally hands-off, but odds are you're going to have hands-on for a while. But even if you're hands-on, you've broken that bond between an hour's worth of work for an hour's worth of money. And the funny thing is, once you start breaking that bond, it makes you think differently. You start thinking differently about everything you do. Because now you're like, hey, why would I work for 50 hours when I can work for 30 hours and make 50 hours worth of money and then spend that other 20 hours with my family or doing something I love or earning more money, right? And the big thing, the reason why I keep talking about like earning more money is like, why would I want to work extra hard now to just work extra hard later to make more money? And that's really to create the snowball. So I think many of you listening love the idea of retiring at 22 or retiring at 32 or 42 or 52 or whatever, right? A lot of people love the idea of being able to work less. But the kicker is you've got to work more up front to work less later. And that's the kind of the funny thing here. You got to work smarter now. So when I talk about working my tail feathers off, and I mean working really hard all the time for days, it's because that's going to be much more reward for much less work over your total lifetime. Because a lot of those people who complain about the idea of like, hey, I would never work as hard as you, I need to watch my TV at night. I need to have some relaxation time because relaxation time's great and that's what I live for. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Okay, you can go have your relaxation time. It's gonna be real funny? When I'm golfing at 60 and you're sitting there still working your tail feathers off because, you were watching TV when you were 25, right? I mean, to me, that seems silly. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want my livelihood and my life to be completely dependent on a paycheck when I'm 80, right? When I'm 80 years old, I'm not saying I won't work. I can almost guarantee you I will, but I don't want to be dependent on somebody giving an 80-year-old a job, or I'm going to be unable to afford my health care and be unable to afford food and be on the cusp of death. And somebody like, you gotta live now. Yes, live now. I think I live a more exciting current life than people who sit around watching TV all day. Like TV, that's what it is for you. TV, you're willing to work your entire life. You're willing to spend your entire life grinding out 50-hour work weeks so you can sit on a Saturday and watch TV? Hey, if that makes you excited, if your dream is to sit in front of a TV all day, then fine, okay? I guess that's fine. Now, I'll tell you right now, I don't have a dream of sitting in front of a TV all day. That's not fun to me. But if it's fun to you, great. But you better make that conscious decision. Like, you better be able to sit here and look me in the eye and say, Brooks, all I want to do is sit in front of a TV all day. I don't want anything else. I don't want to retire. I don't want to travel. I don't want to have a nice house. I don't want to have a nice car. I want to sit in front of a TV. If you can do that with a straight face, then fantastic. I'm not here to tell you there's anything wrong with your dreams. But the problem is most people I know that do that and say that, they have zero interest in sitting in front of a TV. They just use that as an excuse so they don't have to get up and do something, right? Go get up and do something. Do something. I don't understand this laziness epidemic so many people are involved with, right? So, passive income is a great way to start creating this snowball. And a lot of times it creates a whole lot of work up front, but that money starts working for you over time. So if you write a book and then you spend a lot of time and money and effort marketing it, because writing a book is useless if you don't market it, right? Just publishing a book, you're not going to sell jack. you will literally sell nothing except for your parents and maybe your best friend, and everyone else will ask you to give it to you for free. But seriously, just publishing a book is not going to make you money. You then have to market the heck out of it. Once you get that rolling and you market the heck out of it and you have people buying the book and you're bringing in $1,000 a month in income or $10,000 a month in income, that is the start of a snowball, right? That money will continue to come in every month. It might be a little more some months, it might be a little less some months, but the idea is that money will keep coming in every month, which means you're not working each month for that. So say you wrote one book every month. Okay, I know that'd be pretty tough, but you write one book every month. And every time you write a book, you get $1,000 a month in income. Okay, then what would happen? In your first month, you would get nothing because you would be writing the book. The second month, your book would be published. So you're writing a new book, but your old book was published. The old book that was published generates $1,000. The new book that's published generates nothing. So in the first month, you get $0. The second month, you get $1,000. What happens third month? Third month, you publish your third book, but then you had just published your second book, which generates $1,000, and you still have your first book, which generates $1,000. Now you have $2,000. The next month, you're working on your fourth book. You've already published your first, second, and third books. Those three books are each generating $1,000 a month. Now you've got $3,000 while you're working on your fourth book. So you're still working very hard each month. But you see that snowball effect? 1 month it was 1,000, then the next is 2,000, then the next is 3,000, then the next is 4,000. By the end of the year, you're making $11,000 a month, which is more than $120,000 a year. And you know what happens at that point if you stop? At that point if you stop, you keep generating that $11,000 a year. So you quit at the end of the year and you go work on something else. That $11,000 keeps on coming every month. You get this check in the mail, $11,000, $11,000, $11,000, right? So you got $120,000 no matter what you do. If you go fishing, if you go traveling, if you go work another job, you're bringing in that $11,000 from that passive income source. That's what we're talking about, right? Now, imagine in that case, you're literally adding $1,000 every month that you write another book. In your job right now, if how can you double your salary in a month? Can you do it? Can you double your salary in a month? There might be some salespeople out there that said, yes, I can if I sell everything. But then are you guaranteed that income moving forward? Probably not. So that's where this concept of passive income is so powerful, is you get it rolling for you, and then all of a sudden it creates a snowball where all of a sudden you have more and more money. And I've talked about this in the past. So many people like to say you don't need money to make money, and that, anybody can be successful. You just need a great idea. You can. It's a heck of a lot of work if you're broke. It's so hard to make that first few bucks when you're broke. When you start having a little bit of money, magically, it's so much easier to make more. So, realistically, when you start creating the snowball, you're creating money. You're generating more and more money every month that you can then use for really cool things that generate more and more money for every month. It's so cool. And so many people get frustrated about how many rich people there are out there, but they don't realize how easy it is to become one of those rich people. You get off your butt when you're 20 years old and you start working a little harder and making some extra money and rolling that into a snowball. Then when you're 50 years old, you're a freaking billionaire. That's kind of the point, is that once you get the snowball rolling with this passive income concept, then you break that bond of the dollar for an hour concept. And when you break that bond of a dollar for an hour, then all of a sudden you can become incredibly, incredibly wealthy. And this is where I start to disagree with some others out there, or see things differently. There's different kinds of people out there. You've got your people like your Donald Trumps and your Grant Cardones, and you've got your people like Mr. Money Mustache, if you know him. And people like Mr. Money Mustache kind of have this mentality of, hey, if you just live like you're broke all the time, then you can retire when you're like 30. Fine. If that does it for you, retire when you're 30 and live in a cardboard box. Now, I don't like cardboard boxes and I don't want to live in one. Right? I don't know what my medical costs are going to be in the future, but I want to make sure I cover it. Now, let me tell you, Mr. Money Mustache is doing fine, but a lot of people that follow his mentality are really just living like they're broke all the time, and then that allows them to retire sooner. And that's true, it works. But it only makes sense if living like you're broke all the time does it for you. That's got to be what you sit there and say, you know, I really enjoy the lifestyle of living like you're broke. And some of the Mr. Money Mustache teams are gonna try to push you in that direction. They're gonna sit there and say, you just have to learn to not like money. And that's fine, right? I get it. I think some people are too addicted to money. They're too addicted to what you can buy with money. I'm not talking about those situations. But, you know, if all you want to do all day is hike in the backwoods and go camping, then yes, you can probably get by just drastically cutting your income and living off of barely anything. And that's fine, right? And there's a lot to be said about that thought process. I certainly love that thought process. You need to think like that. But that only makes sense if that's the way you want to live. And I'll tell you right now, I don't want to live like that, right? I like to do cool stuff. I like to race cars. I like to have my cars. I like new technology. I like to have land. I like to, you know, fish, and I like to hunt and stuff like that isn't free. And you know, once again, nothing wrong if you don't need that, then don't take it, right? You don't have to be anything. Now, what's going to kill you, I've talked about this in the past, what's going to kill anybody out there is trying to beat the Joneses, because I guarantee you will lose to the Joneses. I don't care if you're the richest man in the world, you will lose to the Joneses because you will never be as rich as everybody else collected, right? Everybody else in the world together will always be richer than you. Therefore, somebody's always going to have something you don't have. And some things money can't buy, right? Somebody's always going to have a different family. Somebody's always going to have a different situation. Somebody's always going to have a different job. You can't have everything. Get over it. Get over trying to have everything, right? Get over it. The problem isn't money or wanting things, certain things. The problem is wanting everything, right? You've got to figure out what is important to you, right? What is important to you? And when we talk about frugality, I don't like the conversation about frugality because to me it's stupid. And the reason why I say it's silly is you know, the people talking about frugality are living a lifestyle I don't want to live. I like, you know, Paula Pant, afford anything. She talks about you can afford anything but not everything. She actually lives a much more frugal lifestyle than I would. But her mentality is right. It is, you can afford anything but not everything. So figure out what it is that's important to you and afford it. And stop chasing the Joneses and stuff you don't care about. That's the worst part, right? You need a cool car because your next door neighbor does and you don't even care about cars. That doesn't make sense, right? Go drive an old Toyota Camry. That'll be just fine. I'm driving a Hyundai Sonata. I love this car. My next door neighbor drives a Mercedes. I don't drive a Mercedes. I don't feel obliged to do it because that's not what I need to do, because I don't need to keep up with them. You know, I mean, that's silly. That's silly to me. So you also shouldn't try to keep up with anybody, but figure out what's important to you. And if what's important to you isn't, you know, living in a box or living with your parents or, you know, hiking every night, then figure out how to get that income to live the life you want using passive income. And that's not frugality, that's being level-headed and smart, right? If you're spending money you don't have and you're digging yourself in a ditch, you're being silly, you're destroying your life for nothing. Figure out what's important to you and make it happen. And that's, you know, to do that, you don't have to be quote-unquote frugal, you've got to be smart. Now, like a lot of things, having frugality skills goes a long way. Learning about frugality goes a long way. Learn about frugality. Figure out how not to spend the money in places that aren't important to you, right? If you don't care about food at all, then figure out how to eat cheap. If you have no problem living in a box, learn how to live in a box, right? If clothes aren't your favorite thing in the world, go figure out how to get clothes at Goodwill, right? We shop at Goodwill. I would buy my suits typically on eBay. I would buy them at thrift stores, but I'm 6'9" and can never find them at thrift stores. right? So, most people that I know that are successful, others might view them as frugal, but only in certain parts of their life that aren't important to them, right? They focus their interest in what's important. And that's what you need to do. You need to focus yourself on what's important to you. And once you recognize what's important to you, then you can focus your attention on what's important to you, and you can figure out how to be more frugal in areas that aren't important to you. I pretty much got chased off of the Mr. Money Mustache forums myself because I kept insisting that I didn't want to give up my cars and stuff, right? I like that stuff. I don't want to give them up. And it's silly to me that you have to, because you don't, right? You have to if you're trying to emulate one specific person, which it works for them, right? So if that works for you, go do it. I'm not telling you don't do it. I'm telling you don't do it if it's not for you. Don't chase somebody else's happiness thinking it's going to make you happy, because then you're going to be miserable. Anyone who's ever given good advice on happiness is going to talk about how the biggest detractor of happiness is chasing somebody else's definition of happiness instead of chasing your own. You've got to chase your own definition of happiness. And what is that to you? I don't know. It's going to be different for every one of you. Some of you are going to love cars like I am. Some of you guys are going to dream of being out there on a racetrack. Some of you are going to spend your free time at car shows and car events, right? If that's you, buy cars. Some of you are going to say, hey, I love sporting events. I want to go to sporting events. I want to go to Super Bowl. I want to have season tickets to my sports team. If that's you, great. That's where you should be spending your money. You should be earning enough money to make that happen. You should be making enough money to make that happen. Some of you are going to say, hey, I want to sit in front of a TV all day. If that's you, great. Figure out what's going to get you the most TV. I'm guessing for most of you, though, it's not going to be, working 50 hours a week and then sitting in front of TV on the weekends. I'm guessing you're going to find it, you'll get a lot more TV time if you work a little harder up front and then spend some time later watching more TV, right? That's not me. I don't enjoy the TV. I don't cable. I don't know how people quote unquote afford it unless that's what you love. I don't do cable TV, right? I don't watch TV. I've got cooler things to do. Got more fun things to do out there, right? I can go work with people. I can go drive cars. I can do cool stuff. So, once again, you've got to figure out what it is for you, and don't let somebody else tell you their way is the right way, because there is no right way. The right way is what's going to work for you. But there's definitely wrong ways, and the wrong ways are to blow money and spend money you don't have and dig yourself in a hole and pull yourself away from your goals instead of pulling yourself closer to it. And that's what we're talking about, is we need to stop pulling you away from your goals, and we need to start pulling you towards your goals. So, how do we keep from pulling you away from your goals? And really, you've got two things. This goes back to the passive income conversation. You've got your passive income and you've got expenses. And your goal is you want your passive income to exceed your expense column. As long as your passive income exceeds your expense column, then that means you can afford to do everything you're doing without being tied to that supplemental income, aka the paycheck. So a lot of people who are firm proponents of passive income are going to say you should spend your paycheck on passive income sources and then use your passive income sources for your lifestyle, because since the passive income never goes away, when your income changes, your lifestyle doesn't have to change, which is really a cool, powerful concept. And that idea that, when your lifestyle is dependent on your passive income, then whatever your passive income stream is right now, whatever your lifestyle is right now, is much more consistent than your income stream can be. Therefore, you can have some confidence in living that specific lifestyle. It often also means you shouldn't have less time in the future unless you choose to. Therefore, you'll have the time to spend in your passions and interest levels. One of the issues I ran into is I had enough money to buy, the cars that I loved, but I didn't have the time to go racing. And so right now, I barely ever get a chance to go out there on the track because I don't have the time to spend, 4 days on a racetrack. And that's what you often have to do when we're talking about, racing. You got to go spend a weekend at a racetrack. But I don't have enough vacation time to go take a weekend off right now. So therefore, I've got to give up on my dreams and passions, right? So that kind of stinks. That stinks. I can't do what I love to do right now. And I can't do what I love to do because I'm not completely passive income strong enough to do that. Now, the problem is I'm passive income strong enough to live the Mr. Money Mustache life. I could retire right now if I wanted to. if I wanted to live that life, but I don't want to live that life. I want to go race Ferraris on a racetrack, okay? If I want to race Ferraris on a racetrack, I need more time and I need more money. So I got to keep building that snowball. I got to make sure I have enough passive income streams generated that I can have the time and money to go race Ferraris on the racetrack, because that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going towards, right? So that's a realistic target, and I'm going to get there. But for somebody else, you could quit where I'm at, right? If that's your life, then that's your life. But you don't have to live that life just because somebody else does. You don't live my life because that's what I do. You got to figure out what your life is and live it. But you got to make sure this passive income stream exceeds your expenses. Any shortfall in passive income to expenses, you've got to earn through your job and your paycheck, right? And if you're just breaking even, if your passive income plus your paycheck equals your expenses, then what are you not doing? You're not building more passive income for the future. So you need to create some margin in that. You need to generate more cash than you're spending so you can grow that snowball and get that snowball rolling, because once that snowball is rolling, it just grows. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but the funny thing is, there's this like line, right? And on one side of the line, you keep digging yourself more in a hole. The minute you step over the other line, you start building the snowball, right? And it's $1, like it's literally $1 difference. You're 50 cents under, you're in debt. 50 cents above, you're generating money, right? I mean, it's so cool how easy it is to get over that little step. And as soon as you get over that step, then you start, once again, you start rolling and generating more and more and more, which is what we're talking about here. So, I really don't think living within your means is frugality. I think that's being smart. So I don't like the suggestion that you have to live within or that, that's frugality, because it's not. That's being smart, right? It's living within your means. But this idea of, once again, the passive income is so important, because if you don't have that passive income, then it's hard to create that snowball. You can't really create that snowball. And once again, when you talk about that equation where your passive income needs to exceed your expenses, as long as your passive income exceeds your expenses, then you're building snowball and you're growing. If your passive income is less than your expenses, then you're either losing money or you're still dependent on that paycheck income on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's okay. I don't think you should necessarily have to cut your paycheck out tomorrow, right? It's not always for everybody about retiring at 25. Retiring at 25 doesn't interest me. I don't have any interest in retiring. I'm past 25. But, I don't have any interest in retiring tomorrow, right? And when I do eventually retire, it's going to be when I stop doing what I have to do and start doing what I want to do. That's always been my definition of retirement. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing stuff. It means I'm going to start doing what I want to do and not what I have to do. And that might start happening now, right? Because I largely do what I want to do. So you could call me semi-retired if you want, because I'm doing stuff I love to do, stuff I want to do. But this is the two sides of the equations you're working with. And for many of you, the passive income is like zero and expenses are high. So every time you add a little bit to that passive income bucket, it starts getting closer and closer to that expenses. And then eventually they're going to meet. And once they meet, that's when you're financially free. That's the definition of financially free for virtually everybody I've talked to. At that point, you're no longer dependent on that paycheck. At that point, you can live your life. So how do you get these to meet? There's two ways, right? One way is increase the income. The other way, or the passive income, the other is to decrease expenses, right? If your expenses are here and your income's here, and you raise your income a little bit, it only goes so far. If you cut your expenses a little bit, it only goes so far. But when you can cut your expenses and you can raise your income, then all of a sudden you can match, and then all of a sudden you're financially free. That's the simplest way to get to financially free. Now, do you make more income or do you cut more expenses is dependent on you. It's completely dependent on you. I can't tell you what it should be for you. For me, I have to raise more income because I have higher expense interests. There's things that I want to spend more money on. Therefore, my need will be to cut expenses some, but to raise the income a lot more. For somebody else, it's going to be raise the income very little, but drop their expenses massively. You'd be amazed at how much you can do and live off of. So many people are like, hey, I can't live off of $40,000. You can live off of $40,000. Are you kidding me? You should have no problem retiring and living a great life on $40,000. Now, if you want Ferraris and Lamborghinis, you're not going to do that on $40,000. Then you need to raise your income. But if you're just trying to live, don't tell me you can't live off $40,000. You're just being an embarrassment to yourself, right? You have no problem living off $40,000. The problem is that you chase the Joneses, and so many people chase the Joneses, spend money they don't have, and ruin their own lives because they think they deserve stuff or they should have stuff, and that's just silly too, right? So live within your means. That's not frugality. Live within your freaking means. You can't afford everything, so figure out what's important to you. What's important to you, and that's what you should live with, right? And once you understand what you're trying to do and what you want to do, then you can worry about increasing your passive income stream and dropping your expenses. The cool thing though is dropping your expenses up front does two things. It both makes it easier for your passive income stream to match expenses, but it also increases the amount of money while you're earning a salary that you put towards that passive income. Therefore, you can get to that point sooner. You can get to that point sooner because your expenses are lower, therefore your passive income has to be lower. And you can get there sooner because your expenses are lower, therefore you've got more money left over that's being dumped into your passive income bucket. Those are the kind of things we're talking about when we're talking about the passive income and expenses. So once again, passive income, a powerful way that's important for you to make sure you can live the life you want to do and you can be financially free. However, right, you're going to have to be some level frugal in certain areas of your life in order to get there. I don't consider that true frugality because you're only being frugal in the parts that aren't important to you, right? You got to cut back in the parts that aren't important to you. You can't go out to eat and eat a miserable dinner every night at some restaurant if that's not important to you, right? I pack my lunch every day. So people are like, why do you pack your lunch when we got a good cafeteria you can eat at my company? And I say, it is good food. It is a good cafeteria, but I can't afford that. I got a Ferrari. That's what I want to spend my money on, right? I want to retire. I want to go on vacation. I want to go spend time with my wife. I want to go racing. I want to go fishing. I want to go hiking. I don't want to go eat lunch. I'll eat my packed lunch. Because if eating my packed lunch means I'm closer to that other stuff, it's more money going in my passive income stream. It's more money to get dividend stocks. It's more money to get real estate. It's more money to get, books published. It's more money to get all this kind of stuff. This passive income sources, right? So what is it to you? Figure out what's important to you and make it happen, all right? Live within your means. Everybody needs to live within their means. Figure out what your real goals are, though, and what your income stream has to be to match those goals. It's going to be different from all of us. Don't feel like you've got to be the same as somebody else, all right? All right, thanks for listening. Hope you learned something. Now go out there and make the impossible happen.
It's the morning drive.